welcome to episode 54 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 7th of January 2019. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelim.
Hello.
Graham.
Happy New Year.
And Will.
Hello.
Yes, Happy New Year. I can't believe it's 2019. Isn't that Blade Runner year or something?
Oh, it is, yeah. Los Angeles 2019.
Yes. Get the synth out.
Yamaha CS80 with polyphonic aftertouch.
Thank God.
Right, nice. Right, so we're going to do a bit of news, not that much, and then we're going to get into predictions from a year ago and some new ones. So the biggest news, I think, of the first bit of the year is that the Raspberry Pi Foundation, or maybe Raspberry Pi Trading Limited, we don't know, are joining the RISC-V Foundation. This has got to be good news.
For you, fanboy.
What, are you saying that I'm a fanboy of RISC-V?
Just a tad, yeah.
Well, surely everyone is.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is that I've just seen the same as you probably, which is just the tweet from Raspberry Pi saying, they look forward to helping out. So it's difficult to say what kind of role they're going to play.
So as you have two sort of back access info sources, tell us all about it.
Well, yeah, actually, it's going to be the next CPU architecture for the next Pi.
You heard it here first.
Exclusive. Well, that's what everyone's hoping, but presumably you do know more than you can say to us.
I know absolutely nothing. No, I'm useless at this kind of industrial espionage stuff. I really don't know anything.
All right, fair enough. But it would be amazing if it was a RISC-V based Pi, but I don't know. As I said on LAN, I can't see it this year. What do you guys think?
Oh, I'd love to see it as soon as possible. I would love to see the Raspberry Pi be the first consumer-focused piece of hardware to have a RISC-V processor in it. I think that would be good for everybody.
Do you think that it would maybe make Ubuntu adopt RISC-V as an architecture?
I don't know. We'll have to see what Debian are doing there first of all, I think. And I think we'll probably take our lead from them. But let's see.
Well, by the sounds of the tweet where they say, hoping to contribute to maturing the Linux kernel and Debian port for the world's leading free and open instruction set architecture, you would have thought that they are going to work with Debian to make a solid RISC-V port, at least of the stuff that they need, if not the whole Debian archive, which hopefully would mean that you can get Ubuntu. And it won't be long before you get Arch and various other distros if the Raspberry Pi Foundation do ship a Pi with RISC-V. But I don't know. It seems too good to be true to me that we'll get it sooner rather than later, because they're just so expensive, aren't they, those boards that you can get at the moment? Trying to get that down to $35, how can they do that?
I think it's probably, if it's anything, it's like a medium-term goal, 5 to 10 years, because I think that's the way that the Raspberry Pi Foundation likes to think. It's so wedded to its kind of super smartphone, basically PCB. And I'd have thought they'd have made plans for working with that for quite some time. But this is a great way of hedging kind of their future architecture development funds or something like that.
That's not very optimistic then. That sounds like not even in a year or two. You're thinking more like 5 years plus.
I do, yeah. I think, well, maybe you should leave this for the predictions section, but yeah, I think the Raspberry Pi Foundation likes to make medium, long-term plans and spends a lot of time developing its ideas and its platforms. I don't think it'll be in a rush.
Does Eben, etc., still work for Broadcom?
That's a really good question.
Because, I don't know, I can't picture, unless Broadcom are going into the RISC-V stuff as well, I would find that to be quite an unusual choice to make.
Yeah. So for a long time, it was like an honorary position, wasn't it, really? So I don't know. That's a good question. I can't think he is, considering, but I don't know.
He's now been followed by a white van if he is, though.
All right, well, they've also finally upstreamed the driver for the touchscreen, the official touchscreen, which was going to go into the 4.21 kernel, but that has been renamed to 5.0 rather arbitrarily, as usual.
Yeah, I think that's nice. I think it's still quite a slightly different context. It's still quite expensive. If you look on eBay, for example, you can get like 1080 screens that are like for £15 or £20. But there must be lots of people using it, especially in schools and in other installations.
Yeah, for the resolution, it's pretty pricey, isn't it? It hasn't really dropped in price as other screens have. So I don't know, but at least it is officially supported. You know that it's just going to work straight away with Raspberry, and you just plug it into the GPIO and they put the ribbon cable in, and it's just going to work. Whereas some of those other screens, you might be pissing around with drivers and stuff. So I don't know. I can see why people would just go for that, especially in education where they just need it to work. But I suppose with the kind of tinkerer, hacker people, they would relish the challenge of trying to get something else working.
Yeah, I think you're right.
As for this kernel reaching 5.0, I mean, there's not much to say, is there really? It's just the usual stuff. It's just a standard release candidate, and it just happens to have been iterated the major version number.
Yeah.
So I suppose we have to mention it, but I don't know, is there anything really of interest in there?
Not really. Well, I suppose it's all interesting. It's all iterative improvements. There's the Raspberry Pi touchscreen. There's more GPU and CPU fixes. AMD are adding support for their FreeSync technology. Intel are adding support for Ice Lake graphics, their sort of next generation graphics. It all feels very very graphical to me. Looking at the highlights there, it's interesting to see. I wonder if this is in part because hardware vendors like AMD and Intel are seeing growth in AI markets, which are using GPUs and possibly even gaming as well on Linux, and so they want to really capitalize on that.
Yeah, possibly. I saw the news today that NVIDIA are going to finally support FreeSync, which is quite something, isn't it? It was certainly for some displays. They're going to stop being such proprietary bastards, so that's good. So I suppose, there is a real growth area there with gaming and I suppose the machine learning as well. But it means now that if you ship a distro with a 4.something kernel, it kind of looks bad for you, doesn't it? So it's going to make people think that your distro is really old and shit and out of date.
If they know what kernel version numbers are, I don't think they're going to be too worried about it.
True. Yeah. All right, well, nothing to do with Linux. The other side of the fence, fail him, get your trolling hat on and piss off the BSD people. Go on.
Lol. The FreeBSD patches weren't making it back up to upstream with Lumos, which is quite funny because now they're going to have to use ZFS on Linux. Well, they don't have to, but realistically speaking, there's nothing happening in the other branch. So essentially, ZFS on Linux is the way to go, which is kind of hilarious, especially when Alan Jude would go on and on about how great you should use FreeBSD for your ZFS. Well, not anymore. For now, anyway.
And you use quite a lot of ZFS, don't you, in your work stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use it until fairly recently. I mean, at home, I don't use it at all because I don't have ECC memory. But yeah, on servers for data storage and stuff, yeah, it's quite good. I mean, I don't know. Butterfest better? Is ZFS better? They're all kind of not perfect, and there's a lot of cool features going into ZFS now, and the only thing that can be out of this is that it's good because it just means more developers on a unified code base, and not two separate versions that are all getting merged and tested differently. And apparently on FreeBSD they had this Solaris portability layer that they had to work with because the Lumos guys were building it for a Solaris type system, and all that messing. It's nice if you have it as tightly integrated as possible. So they are working on all the tests that are required for using the ZFS on Linux stuff, and they're going to integrate all that into the building on the FreeBSD side as well. So they're all passing each other's tests and stuff. So that's all good. So happy families, but you just remember Linux will crush you eventually, no matter what you do.
Yeah, fuck your permissive licenses. GPL for the win, eh?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Last news story then is that Fedora are planning a per-system unique identifier that they're going to apply to you using DNF, and that's going to allow them to count their users. So they're going to finally find out exactly how many users they've got. They have been using IPs, but obviously that isn't a perfect way of doing it. Whereas if each machine has got a unique identifier, then they will finally find out how many or how few users that they actually have. Will, this sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? I do wonder if what we've done in Ubuntu has rather taken the sting out of the tail of this story for the people who want to get it implemented into Fedora. But the comments that I've been reading today have been the same arguments and the same complaints that we had when we introduced it on Ubuntu about questions about invading privacy and things like this. But they have gone to great lengths to explain that they're not invading privacy. And I have to believe this. Privacy in computer terms would be tracking what you're doing, what websites you're visiting, all that kind of thing. And all they're talking about here is taking a unique number and collating it together with all the other unique numbers in the way. There's no invasion of privacy as such, well, as far as I'm concerned, but perhaps I would always say that.
I didn't realize that OpenSUSE were already doing this, and no one seemed to care when they did it. And surely it's better than collecting IPs anyway, because IPs can actually be linked to a person very, very easily, or at least a location and stuff like that. Whereas if it's just, this is one unique machine, they don't necessarily know whether that is a laptop, a desktop, a container, a cloud instance. It's just, this is a machine running Fedora, and it is turned on and receiving updates and checking for updates and all the rest of it, and is active. So that seems to me, as long as it's implemented correctly, which you would trust Fedora to do,
yeah,
I don't see a problem with it really. But I know a lot of people will have a problem with it, and they'll say, "Oh, you're doing what Ubuntu? You're as bad as Canonical, herp derp derp." But this is IBM making you do it and all that. But it just seems just overblown to me.
Yes, tracking with IP addresses or trying to measure with IP addresses is fraught with problems, as you said. You could have many machines behind a NAT or firewall or something where they all appear to be coming from the same IP address. And conversely, you have the opposite problem where you could have lots of IP addresses associated with a relatively small number of machines. If you spin something up in the cloud, there's a reasonable chance that you're going to get an IP address which has already been used by another machine. So there are lots of problems. I genuinely don't think that it's such an issue. If countless people are putting their time and energy into a free product, I think it's only fair that they get some feedback from their user base about how many people are using their product. If they want to make smart decisions about where they're investing their money, if they want to make smart decisions about how they target their product towards the needs of their users, then they need to learn about their users. I think this is fine. And I'm not suggesting that they're going to expand this in future to learn more about what you're doing on your machine. I'm just using that as an example.
But what happens if they get these numbers and they're just really, really low and just terrible, and it turns out that hardly anyone's using Fedora? Would IBM and Red Hat just say, maybe we shouldn't be bothering to invest so much money in it, and maybe they'll kind of slim the team down and everything? So it could ultimately be bad news for them if they do implement this.
Well, I don't know. I'm speaking outside of school here, but I don't think they're running Fedora as a profit center. It's done as a technology proving ground and somewhere where they can research and develop their ideas. As far as IBM and as far as Red Hat are concerned, then RHEL is where the money is, and everything they do in Fedora directly feeds into that. So whether or not people are using it, I don't think really matters.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, this episode is sponsored by DigitalOcean. Go to do.co/LNL. That's for Late Night Linux. And that will give you $100 credit to get started and 60 days to use it. Now, DigitalOcean offers VMs, or droplets as they call them, in data centers all around the world with super fast network and super fast SSDs. And they offer various distros: Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, CentOS, even FreeBSD, and some container distros, CoreOS, Fedora Atomic, and Raja OS. But you can also use your own custom distribution if you don't want to use one of those. And these droplets start at $5 a month for a gigabyte of RAM, 1 CPU, 25 gigabytes of disk, and a terabyte of transfer. And they go all the way up to 32 CPUs with 192 gigabytes of RAM and ridiculous amounts of storage. But they also have CPU optimized droplets. So if you only need a lot of CPU and you don't need that much RAM or disk, you can go for one of those. And if you want to add storage to any of these droplets, it's really easy with either object storage or block storage. You just attach however much you want to your droplet and start using it. And you can either start with a basic distro install and build it up to be exactly what you want, or if you want a quick shortcut, they've got loads of one-click apps like Basic Lamp and Lamp Stacks, WordPress, Discourse, GitLab. So go to do.co/LNL, get your $100 credit, and start creating VMs with full root access all around the world. That's do.co/LNL. Okay, let's move on to the predictions then. And first of all, the ones that we did last year. Now, that was before your time, Will and Graham. So we should, I suppose, breeze through the other two guys. So Jesse, his first one was that 2018 would be the year of snaps on the desktop. And in order to quantify that, he said that Audacity, Mumble, and Opera would all be snaps.
And he gamed the system massively.
Well, yeah, because Popey and Wimpy just got to it and snapped them up straight away. And so he got his point, the bastard. But it was pretty obvious anyway that would happen. And we have seen good growth with snaps, and we've seen a lot of big applications going there. And Flatpak seems to be doing well as well. And I don't think it's necessarily a fight between them. I think it's fine for them both to be doing well. And unsurprisingly, that's the situation we're in. And I think 2019 is probably going to be a similar story. We're going to see a lot more stuff coming to both Flatpak and Snap. His second one was that there would be a good open source voice assistant for Linux, and he should be able to use it to find the opening hours of a local shop. Well, and this didn't include Mycroft either.
He said a good one.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's just not happened at all. That's just a mega fail of prediction, I'm afraid. We've seen massive growth with the others, haven't we? With the Amazon one and Apple's one and Google's one. They've gone from strength to strength. But in terms of open source, not looking, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Amazon announced 100 million units had been sold of She Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yeah, I still don't get it at all. I just don't understand why anyone would want to use these things. It's just completely beyond me.
Yeah, same.
And I'm not going to put one in my house to find out, because it's fucking listening to you all the time. What's wrong with people?
How else are you going to turn your heating on?
Oh yeah, maybe I could actually get off my fucking arse and do it or something. It's not that hard, is it? But before anyone says, oh, your phone's listening, well, mine isn't, because I've got all that shit disabled. So I don't know what is wrong with people. It's like 1984. You think that in that book, everyone who had the telescreen, do you think they were forced to have them? No, they probably sold them in fucking curries. And it just, people are just walking into this. I don't know, I probably shouldn't be ranting about this, but I just do not understand why anyone would want this.
You just reminded me. I got 1984 as a Christmas present last year, and I've only read about 20 pages in. I should read more.
Spoiler.
Don't.
They all have telescreens.
No point.
Anyway, I would give it a go if it was open source and completely on my LAN, and I knew that, but I'm not going to give a go to any of these other ones. Thank you very much. They can get fucked. Right. So iKey's ones were... the first one, a fundamental architectural weakness would be revealed in Windows across all verticals, and that included Azure and stuff. And he said it will shake it up and give Linux the upper hand. I don't think we've seen that, have we?
Windows licensing? No.
We've seen some really shit Windows 10 updates, but that's not an architectural weakness. That's just dodgy QA. So no, I'm afraid he doesn't get that one. And he said, we'll see a viable attempt at a gaming Linux system that's not SteamOS based and not the Atari thing. And this machine would be geared for gaming from the ground up. And we're not talking RetroPie and stuff like that. He's talking modern games. And I don't think we saw that, did we?
What about the Switch?
Yeah, I suppose technically.
It was designed for games. It does run Linux.
Yeah.
And you can install Plasma on it.
Yeah. All right, so fail him. You snuck a third one in, and that was that iKey was going to get a visit from Gabe and his golden helicopter, and that Valve would stop offering the download binary and go with his Steam integration thing, which has not happened.
Well, you say that, but Clear Linux, which we believe he is working on for Intel, now, again, they are going to continue that work. So, ha 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 ha.
Yeah. But that's not Gabe and his golden helicopter, so you're not getting any points for that.
Oh, that is the most scandalous outrage ever.
All right, well, your first proper one was there'd be so much backlash against the Intel management engine, etc., being closed that they and AMD will open it up and you said that AMD would be the first with their PSP.
Yeah.
And Ike agreed, and I said that I wanted to see it, but you're wrong. And I wanted to be wrong about that, but no chance. And sure enough, you were completely fucking wrong.
And I felt so left out with all the Meltdown Inspector patches because my processor was too old that I went out and bought a Ryzen only a few months ago. So now I too get to complain about all these patches.
Yeah.
But no PSP.
No, it doesn't look like we're going to get any of that stuff. Although you never know. All right, your second one was that the Software Freedom Law Center and the Software Freedom Conservancy fight would cause a schism between the Linux Foundation and non-Linux Foundation people. And you said a bit of the VMware lawsuit, etc. And I said at the time, well, that's already brewing, so you can't really have it as a prediction, but you did anyway. I don't know. Have we seen a schism? I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe not really, unfortunately. Well, fortunately.
no more than already existed between the two of them.
Yeah.
I want utter destruction just so I get a point.
It's like the Palestinian People's Liberation Front.
Splitters.
All right, okay, so my first one was that UBports would be the mobile operating system to watch. And I was talking about them looking to implement snaps and Android apps with Anbox. And I said that they'd make Android apps work properly. Well, that has not really happened, unfortunately. I spoke to Dalton from the project yesterday about this, and he said that the preview for Anbox is in the developer images, so it's available for testing, but it's not stable, and that they don't really have an ETA for it being in the stable images anytime soon. So I can't really spin that as a win. I could try, but I don't think I'm going to get away with it.
Not if I didn't get mine.
Which is a real shame because I do have high hopes for UBports. The thing is that some like real life stuff got in the way in 2018, which, I don't know, watch their Q&As if you want to find out more about that. I don't know how much is public and how much isn't, but yeah, like some real life stuff got in the way, and so that slowed them down. But now they're looking to go full steam ahead into 2019, so hopefully it'll be soon. I'm not going to make any predictions this episode about it, but I really want to see it happen. I still think that if they make Android apps work, then they'll get the users and developers to come over there because it's going to mean that you've got loads of apps. I mean, that said, they are growing the number of apps on a weekly basis, it seems. But I think if they get this Android stuff working, then it's going to drive so much adoption because it would just mean that once they've got WhatsApp and, Facebook Messenger, all the stuff that people actually use, then maybe more people would be willing to give it a go.
I don't think we'd ordinarily get you saying you want people to use WhatsApp and Facebook.
No, I want them to be able to use that if they want to.
Yeah.
That's the key thing here.
Like Amazon Echo.
Yeah, well, if you want to use it, if you want to, sleepwalk into fucking dystopia, then good luck. But not for me, thanks. But, well, here's hoping for UBports anyway in Ubuntu Touch, but that, didn't happen. So my next one, my second one, was met with derision, shall we say, when I said the word Bitcoin. Everyone went, oh, fucking Bitcoin. And I said that it would be worth under $1,000 because I'd said it would be worth $100,000 on Linux Action News.
So you got double wrong.
Yeah, so I thought I'd hedge my bets. And yeah, I was just completely fucking wrong because it was worth about 3,000 or something. So yeah, that sucks. I was completely wrong. So I think I should probably stop predicting things about Bitcoin now.
As Bitcoin finally died, can I stop being interested in thinking about looking into it?
No, I wouldn't say so. I didn't look today how much it was worth, but it was
4,000.
So yeah, it's kind of rallied a bit from its low point. So
it's a pyramid scheme.
Wait till it's worth $1, and then maybe you can start mining it with your NVIDIA. Oh no, you got an AMD card, didn't you?
AMD all the way.
Yeah.
Open the goddamn PSP.
Okay, well, onto a bit of admin then. And first of all, thank you everyone for supporting us on PayPal and Patreon. It's very much appreciated. The Patreon seems to kind of tick up very slowly, but surely every month. So remember that you can get an advert-free feed if you support us to the tune of $5 or more on Patreon. So go to latenightlinux.com/support if you want to find out more about that. And if you go to latenightlinux.com/contact, there's various ways to get in touch with us there. And a quick FOSS Talk Live 2019 update. It's going to be on the 8th of June at the Harrison in King's Cross, London. It's now sold out, so you can't get any tickets anymore.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's definitely happening. We're going to have a full room. Now, if you have reserved a ticket and subsequently realize that you can't come because you've got to go to a wedding or something, then please do go back onto Eventbrite and cancel it so that then we know that that ticket has become available. And if you are only finding out about this now and you want to come, I didn't even say what it was. It's a bunch of us Linux podcasters doing live shows and having banter in a pub. So you can still go. It's in the downstairs of a pub, and people who've got a ticket will be prioritized to get into that downstairs bit. But the very worst case scenario is you come to a pub with a bunch of Linux nerds in it and get to talk about Linux and whatever. So obviously everyone in the world is welcome to come into that pub, anyone over 18 at least. But you might be able to come in and see some shows even if you don't have a ticket, and I'm sure some tickets will be returned. So yeah, that's happening. I should be scared, but I'm not. It's such a kind of relaxing atmosphere in there. Everyone's so warm. But I don't know, I'm not even nervous about going on stage anymore. I was for the first one, but haven't been subsequently. So that should be good stuff anyway. Okay, this episode is sponsored by Entroware. Go to entroware.com. And they are a dedicated Linux computer seller based here in the UK. And they ship computers with Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate 1804 and 1810. They've got a huge range of laptops and some desktops and servers, and almost everything's configurable in terms of RAM and storage and CPUs. And recently, they've refreshed two of their products. One is the Aries, which is their 24-inch all-in-one machine, which looks really, really nice, ideal for saving space on your desk. And also the Apollo, which is their 14-inch Ultrabook, which I've spoken about before, and I'm really hoping to get my hands on soon. They have some more affordable machines which are suited to email and browsing and office tasks, but they go all the way up to real powerhouses with the latest NVIDIA graphics, which are ideal for 3D art and video editing, graphic design, machine learning. And if you can't find something that's exactly right for you, then do get in contact with them and they'll do their very best to accommodate your needs. They ship to the UK, Republic of Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And if you do buy one of the machines, then there's a little drop down at checkout. You can select Late Night Linux and they'll know that we sent you to them. So go to entroware.com for all your Linux computing needs. Right, so on to our predictions for 2019. Who wants to go first? Right, Graham, you're going first.
Right, so I got told off for putting too many down on my list.
Yeah, you need two, and they need to be at least Linux-y.
So I'll skip over the one that starts post-EU exit the UK, and I'll skip over the one that starts Ecuador expunges Julian Assange, and I won't mention that AI will be able to start deciphering what animals are saying to each other.
No, and you're not allowed your synth one either.
This one actually, Valve leverages Proton to test a game streaming platform. This came from this podcast, and I think it was part Will and part a listener who wrote in that came up with this idea. So it's not mine, but it's an idea that's really stayed with me. With Proton, Valve have got a very powerful platform for delivering games from the cloud, which kind of is delivered on PlayStation and it's delivered on the Xbox, and there's some PC gaming that does it, but it's another way of Valve hedging their kind of future in games and being able to deliver games without necessarily having a powerful PC, and a subscription service, of course, which is what everybody wants these days. So I think it's a really good idea. Valve time, it's famous. It takes epochs for anything to happen. So I'm trying my best to say they're going to test it. We're going to be able to test something similar.
Oh, so you're thinking sort of a beta test program, but not rolled out officially?
Yeah, I think it's and that's optimistic. But the fact that we can all play with Proton now, I think means that there could be something if something doesn't distract them, like VR. I mean, I love Steam VR. I wish they'd do more on it. So the other one, these predictions are so difficult, and I'm useless at it. Linux is going to get stronger and bigger, and I think KDE really at the moment is going from strength to strength, and it wouldn't surprise me if a distribution like Debian makes it like the main desktop. I'm just saying that, but that's not really my prediction. My prediction is that Adobe announces a Creative Suite for Linux, because I think Adobe's got to do something.
Well, there was certainly a lot of demand for Premiere on their forums. You can request Linux ports or whatever, and that just went absolutely bananas.
But there's also, I know quite a lot of people in the gaming and creative industry, and a lot of the kind of middleware stuff has moved to Linux. There's a lot of the web developers, for example, a lot of them are using Linux, and it would help the designers a great deal. And they can feel it too, the people that I speak to, if there was Creative Suite, from their perspective, not from kind of our perspective as long-term Linux users, if they could just stay in the same environment. And Adobe must be feeling that pressure too.
I think that they kind of are, but these companies move very slowly, and they need to see that they're going to make some serious money straight away. They can't just release it and hope. And one of the big problems that Adobe see is this fragmentation on the Linux desktop, which, of course, that problem is solved by snaps. But it seems that they haven't quite got the memo on that yet. I would imagine that they will find out a bit more about that. And it wouldn't surprise me if they started talking to Popey and Wimpy and Snap team about this kind of thing this year. But I just can't see it rolling out. It takes such a long time. Not even the technicalities, which obviously take quite a lot of time, but all of the licensing and the legal bullshit takes just months and months and months, and before you can even start working on the technicalities of it. And they would have to make sure it worked flawlessly, otherwise they wouldn't want to push it out. So I think that you're a year too early on this, at least. I think maybe 2020.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. So maybe I should have put alpha or beta in there for testing. It's a good way for them to test the ground, and then they can specify, specific distributions and configurations for people to play with if they want to.
Will, you're being silent on this, presumably, with your insider knowledge.
No, I have no insider knowledge on this. I would be absolutely thrilled to see some of these gold standard content creation platforms coming to Linux. I think it could be a really good enabler for Linux on the desktop, and to bring lots and lots of new users to Linux. I would dearly love to see this happen. I think fundamentally it's a problem of numbers. And even though a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand people make a big deal on Twitter about it, it's probably not enough. But we'll see. I would love to see it happen.
All right. So, Will, what is your first one then?
My first prediction for the next year is that Microsoft will open source Outlook and possibly release a new browser for Linux. But I think, we're pretty confident that they will release a new browser. It should, if it is based on Electron, then it should run on Linux, but whether it will or not, we shall see. But I don't know. I would like to see Microsoft open sourcing something which used to be, a key part of their overall desktop strategy, but now has seen its influence and necessity erode over the years with things like Gmail coming on stream and Office 360 and those kind of things. So maybe there's not much of a market in a closed source email app anymore, and they see the wisdom in open sourcing it, and we finally get a really A-grade email client on Linux.
All right. What's your second one then, Will?
Well, my second one is a bit more worrying for me, and that is that surge pricing will come to the public cloud for machines with IPv4 addresses. It's been common knowledge now that IPv4 addresses are running out, or indeed have run out. And sooner or later, there are going to be so many machines being spun up on AWS for 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there that it's not going to be feasible to stand a machine up with an IPv4 address. I also believe that nobody really cares about IPv6, or at least nobody over the age of about 40. And so people will steadfastly refuse to move their machines over to IPv6, and people like AWS will capitalize on that laziness and charge you more money.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, it's quite cunning.
Yeah, you've probably given them ideas. Yeah, maybe they'll give you a few quid for it.
Patent pending.
All right, well, let's go to you, Phelim, given that one of yours seems to be about this. You've got 3. You need to pick... why do you always have 3?
I have to have 3. It's got to be a non-real number or whatever, that thing where it's divisible by something forever. I can't do maths.
All right, well, what's your Amazon one then?
Right, so I reckon there will be a Amazon backlash. There's been a lot of news stories, even in mainstream news, of companies that are setting up markets on Amazon, now just the shop side of things, and then getting shafted by Amazon, looking at what they're selling because they've got all the stats on it, and then going, oh, you know what, let's make Amazon versions of those things, and then, crushing the small competitors. And I can't see how they wouldn't do that with the data side of things too, and I strongly suspect that people will start to cotton onto that fact, and I think they might get burnt. Apart from the fact that they seem to have one of the most horrific internal employee setups going. So,
could happen, I suppose.
I don't know how you quantify it, but maybe slow down dramatically. I can't see, it's not going to stop within the next year. It's like no more AWS for anybody else, but there's got to be some impact to it, I think.
All right, well, that's kind of your 0.5 again then. So what's your first proper one?
Jeez, I don't know how to choose between what's... Okay, I'd say... Ubuntu 19.10 will be fully snap-tainerized, as I have now decided to call it. Similar to Project Atomic for Fedora, and I think it will be snaps all the way. There'll be a very, very minimal core, and everything else will be a snap. So it'll be desktop, any of the tools, a server version and desktop.
Right, we'll put him out of his misery on this. That's not happening by this year, is it?
I don't believe so. But who knows?
I'll start chiseling them my 1 point already.
I'm off to a meeting next week, so who knows? All things could change, but I...
Push it.
No. The problem I have with this is that I think that the reason that people have used Linux systems historically is because they want that tinkerability over control over their machines, and everything being containerized like that, I think, would not be appealing to the masses. It won't surprise you to hear that lots of people have suggested doing this, and it probably is the way that things will go ultimately. I don't know. I'm not convinced that the long greybeards of the Linux world are ready for everything being separated from everything else. It's a great idea in a consumer product, in a server product, but is it right for the tinkerers of this world? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fancy it, but yeah.
All right, well, a similar one to one of Graham's then for your second prediction.
Yeah, I think, so I went with Steam Linux active daily users, not number of Steam users on Linux. The active users, I think, is going to triple as Proton takes effect.
I say it's like 0.8 or something at the moment. So you think...
Yeah, so that's why I didn't go for percentages, because, if the number of Windows users goes up massively or drops massively, it messes with that. So, if a couple of 100,000 Windows users go away, it makes the percentage look better for Linux. So that's why I said actual numbers of the active users, according to Proton, well, I think will go up by 3 times.
Well, that's nice and measurable. So... we'll see.
So I have to keep playing GTA just to make sure I get that point.
Yeah, I think you'd be right about that. I think you probably... Well, I said 5% outlandishly would be the market share, because I think that people are going to fuck off to other platforms. People who are using Windows are going to fuck off to other platforms, because Discord have got theirs. The Fortnite people, what they're called? Epic Games, that's the one. They have got their own game store now, and these two are undercutting Steam. So
I think Steam will adjust to that, though, because I think an awful lot of the other ones have been a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely got to be a sort of, you can try and compete about it, but unless you've got all that years of work on it, I think they might win out that way. And even if they drop it down by, I don't know, like if they take 30% now, 20%, if they drop it down by 5 or 10% on whatever they're on right now, I think it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fairly safe prediction anyway, that you're going to get 3 times the number of Linux users on Steam.
Active users.
Active users, yeah. All right, so my first one is that we're going to see 2 new Raspberry Pis this year. One of them will be $35 and have 2 gigabytes of RAM, and another one which will be $50 plus, so at least $50, because I think it's time for them to release one that's got really good specs, gigabit Ethernet and stuff and just stop worrying about this $35 price point. But they will have a new one that is at the $35 price point and will have, they'll change to a new system on a chip, and that will enable them to get more RAM. So I think 2 gigs of RAM. And I think as a kind of bonus prediction there, we will not see a RISC-V Pi this year. I'm not as pessimistic as you, Graham, but I think that probably 2020 for that, but definitely not in 2019.
So what do you think the market is for the $50 Pi? Is it a nod to the hackers and tinkerers who have bought presumably the majority of Pis over the last few years? Or is this like a play for enterprise users or IoT devices? Or what do you think the appeal of this larger, more expensive device would be?
I think a bit of everything, really. It's just a little bit too underpowered to perform a lot of different tasks. And it's going to be a much more pleasant desktop experience if it's $50 plus, if they can increase the amount of RAM and everything. And I think that, okay, in a lot of educational instances, they are really cost conscious. But then in sort of private schools and, clubs that have got a little bit more money to spend, that extra little bit isn't going to make a huge difference. It's not going to stop them buying it, but it's going to be so much better because just doubling that RAM would just make such a massive difference. And having a faster system on a chip and faster networking, and it opens up so many more possibilities for them if they can break through that $35 barrier. And Eben was pretty clear when the 3 came out that they were not going to do that, but that was a while ago now. So that's why I think it'll change.
You might be right, but at least a few years ago, there's a story that Eben says that tells that when they were just starting the Raspberry Pi Foundation, I think even before the first Pi, I think it must have been, Eric Schmidt from Google, they met with Eric Schmidt and they told him about his plans, or Eben did. And I think, now I'm doing this from memory, Eben said that they were thinking of charging $50 or something. It was probably in the very formative stages. And Eric said to him, no, you've got to make it $1. And I think Eben had a kind of a realization at that point that he was right, that from his perspective and from the perspective of what the foundation was trying to do, that they should try and make the platform as cheap as possible. And I still think they're on that kind of trip. I mean, I could see them augmenting it, but I think for their primary focus to then become a kind of mid-tier SoC that is specifically aimed at tinkerers who need a media center that does more, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, that's why I think they'll definitely keep the $35 one around. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be a $35 RISC-V Pi this year, and that'll be it, and I'll be completely wrong. But we'll see. My second one then, and the last prediction, is that Microsoft will not release a desktop Linux distro in 2019.
And I spot the word desktop, so you think it'll be a server then?
Well, they've already got that Azure thing with the IoT device. And so, yeah, they could potentially have a distro that is specific for Azure for containers or something like that. But people seem to be speculating about this Linux desktop, and it'll be a Windows-like shell on Linux, and it's potentially paving the way for a Linux future for Microsoft. But I'm just not having it, not yet. No chance. We could potentially maybe see some sort of remote desktop type situation, but no, not having it. No Microsoft Linux distro in 2019. Now, of course, Microsoft could buy Canonical, but that doesn't count. If it's just Ubuntu but backed by Microsoft, then no, it doesn't count. I'm talking about a specific Microsoft Linux distro here. Right, so no doubt we're all completely wrong, and we'll revisit this in a year's time. But that'll probably do it for this episode then. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelan.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.